Welcome to Key West, and usually it's just travel with a wise guy, but this time it's going to be travel with the wise guys and a wise gal. So this is my brother Jim, his wife Debbie, and my uncle Rocky. And so we're going to show you around Key West, some historical places. We'll see what's all the fuss about Key West, and who knows, maybe we'll see some unexpected things as well.
It's about a 3-hour drive from Miami down to the end of the Keys, which is where Key West is located. We're going to go from the north to the south here. There's Whitehead Street and Duval Street. Those are kind of the main streets that have most of everything on it that you want to see. On the north side of Key West, this is Mallory Square. A lot of famous sunset pictures have been taken there. This is obviously where the cruise ships come in and dock. And as we head south, this is the Art and History Museum, built in 1891. The first place we decided to take a little tour of was the Mel Fisher Maritime Museum. And outside of the museum, there's some interesting little displays. There's some sunken treasure type stuff. And this was a raft that was recovered from some Cuban immigrants that were trying to get to the United States. That's Mel Fisher. He was a, adventurer, treasure hunter kind of guy. He was known for finding a shipwreck of a 1622 ship that he found nearly $500 million.
When you get down there and you see something, and you find something, your heart would be beating in your chest.
Yeah, that would give you the gumption to keep, knowing in another 200 days that if you didn't find nothing, just knowing that if you did find something on that 203rd day, gold, silver, you'd be stoked.
There's an endless display of interesting items in this museum. This is just a little taste of it. We're going to head down Front Street, which is just to the west of Whitehead. It kind of veers off a little bit. And there's just historical places all around this part of Key West. There's the old naval station that was in operation for 150 years. And just down the street from there is the Harry Truman Little White House. This was not originally anything to do with Harry Truman, as it was originally the first officer's quarter of the U.S. Naval Station that we just saw right before we got there to the Harry Truman Little White House. But he kind of fell ill after a couple years as president, and he started coming down here regularly to kind of recuperate. And there's the famous newspaper of when Dewey beats Truman. If you notice, if you look real close here, part of it was upside down. That's just kind of a funny part that a lot of people don't know about that. But Truman came down here a lot. He actually spent 175 days of his presidency there. Something like 10 to 20% of his presidency was spent down here. And he would come down in November and December, and he would also come down in February and March. And he, as technology got better, he was able to communicate better and get back and forth, and used it a lot. After him, there were presidents Kennedy and Carter, and even Bill Clinton came down and visited the old Little White House. And he was from Missouri, and so on his desk he made sure he remembered where he came from. And there's a festive Harry Truman, 33rd president of the United States. And here's a quick stop by the Key West Post Office. The original post office, not this one, was opened in 1829. And just down the street from that is the famous mile marker 0 for Highway 1. It's 0 for either you're beginning here or you're ending here. So that's always a big photo op. Next, we stop at the kapok tree. This is a remarkable tree to check out here. It was the sacred tree of the Mayan people and grows something like 130 feet tall, just a remarkable tree right there next to the courthouse, which was built in 1890. Key West is the county seat of Monroe County. And in the same year, this bar, Green Parrot Bar, was built, 1890. It's one of the oldest businesses in Key West. Key West has lots of bars. We're going to go to some later in the video, but over here in Whitehead Street, it's kind of appropriate because it's more historical than some of the other places. And just down the street, this is the Ernest Hemingway house. He lived here in the 1930s and wrote some of his most well-known books while in Key West. Not a great view here, but then here's a better picture of what it looks like. It's obviously a popular tourist attraction. There's the lighthouse that was built in 1848. And now over to DJ's Clam Shack. This is one of my favorite stops. I've been here before. The lobster rolls are pretty amazing. It was on the Food Channel before, so yeah, it's definitely worth, if you want to try something, get the lobster roll. So now we're over on Duval Street, and this is kind of the busier touristy area, but there is a lot of historical places like, the 1832 church, but there's just lots of shops and different things with these different historical buildings kind of mixed in all down the way, and as you get into certain parts of it, it's just bar after bar and restaurant and after restaurant and just something to do all the time in Key West down Duval Street. We hop back over to Whitehead Street, just past the Naval Air Station, heading to the southernmost point. See lots of these little guys running around all the time. And there is one of the most photographed parts of Key West there at the southernmost buoy. There's long, long lines there all the time. After being at the southernmost point, we go over to pretty much the most westernmost point, to the Zachary Taylor Fort, or sometimes known as Fort Taylor. Zachary Taylor was the 12th president of the United States, and this was named after him after he died in office. It was built in the 1840s and is probably the lesser known of the forts here in Key West. There's Tortuga National Park, which is further west, kind of out in the Gulf out there. But this was originally surrounded totally by water and has a pretty interesting history. There weren't any battles fought here, but there were a whole bunch of forts built at this time by the United States as they were kind of trying to fortify their borders at that time. And then the Civil War came along and became a useful area for the United States to have a fort down at the bottom of the country. It was also used during the Spanish-American War in 1898. It was used as well in both World Wars and the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that's kind of when it was, done being used in a military state. And then it became a state park. It was a really terrific tour. It only cost $2. Most everything in Key West, every museum we went to, we kind of joked and said it cost $17. And then we go over here to this one, and it's $2. And we had a great tour guide. And you can see all the cool places I'm walking through. I kind of ventured off the tour for a little while as I got distracted by the cool architecture and imagining, what it was like being at this fort back in the day. One of the things the tour guide said that was interesting is that, you think of lobster being so, delicious, and it's obviously more expensive than most food, but back then it was so plentiful, and it was looked upon as something that wasn't very tasty, and it was cheap there, and so all the peasants and slaves there were fed lobster because people thought that it was kind of gross. So, but this was all water when the fort was mostly in use, and then now it's been man-made land ever since. What do you think of the painting and the artwork on the wall?
Well, I must say, it takes me back. I'm thinking 14th century Incan. Very nice shape and form.
Nice and pointy.
Yeah.
Especially that one.
Very defined. Very erect color scheme.
After dinner, we cruised around town checking out some of the night spots in Key West. There are so many places for all kinds of interests.
Somebody's gonna give you a lesson and leave. Somebody's gonna give you back a chance. Give in and I hold it out around. He's bowing down.
I always have a lot of fun in Key West, and every time I go I find something new. Found some cool historical places I'd never been to on this trip, and obviously it's one of the more beautiful places in the country, as you can see right there. And it was fun. Had a good time with my family. Hope you enjoyed a little bit of this Key West Christmas. Gonna grab your phone. Chicken molestation.
Chicken's like, oh, wait a minute.
That is the money shot right there.